go. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this extraordinary location for this very special unveiling. I want to start by thanking our hosts, Detroit POW, for hosting us today at this really extraordinary venue, one of the gems of the city of Detroit. The deep history of this field and of Detroit POW's work to use it to support youth sports makes it the perfect place to mark the 50th anniversary of Title IX and the work of the Michigan Task Force on Women in Sports. I also want to start by thanking the Wilson Foundation and their generous support made much of the task force's work possible. The Michigan Task Force on Women in Sports was established in 2019 by an executive order of Governor Gretchen Whitmer to develop strategies to support and promote opportunities in Michigan for girls and women in sports. I have been proud to serve as chair of that task force for the last 3 years, and I'm tremendously grateful for the work of the members, the advisory board members, staff, and supporters, many of whom are here today. They have brought expertise from the private sector, youth and adult athletics, academia, and the nonprofit sector, and the final report and the recommendations that we're releasing today reflect their investment, their support, their wisdom, and how all of these sectors benefit when women and girls have opportunities to play and lead in sports. And today, as we mark the 50th anniversary of Title IX, our nation, our state, and so many of our institutions have benefited, but also have failed to meet all of its requirements. By failing to reach full compliance, we do a disservice to girls and women everywhere, and really all of us, hindering our economy and depriving our communities and businesses of future leaders. So that's why it's critical. We'll wait for that to pass. That's our flyover that we had scheduled for today. That's why it's critical for women and girls in Michigan to be provided what they deserve: high quality, equitable opportunities to participate in sports as athletes, as coaches, as mentors, administrators, and leaders. The report we're releasing today makes 3 broad recommendations and proposes tactics to achieve them. The recommendations and proposals are data-driven. They're based on the research findings developed by this task force, as well as previous studies, and if implemented, they will make a marked difference for women and girls all throughout the state of Michigan, and indeed for all of us. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to some of our members and supporters so that they can speak in more detail about the report's findings and how those findings interact with their personal experiences. First up will be Carrie Becker. She's a task force member and also the athletic director at Grand Valley State University. Carrie, thank you so much for your work on the task force and for being here to share a few words today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you to Governor Whitmer for launching this task force. Thank you to Jocelyn for selecting me. It's an honor to be invited to be a part with this group and do this work. But the work is just beginning. So as Jocelyn alluded to, there's recommendations that came out of this. And so we're going to talk about those. Like Title IX, I was born in 1972. Which means I also turned 50 today, but that's a whole nother story and probably why I need these readers. But I was born a twin to a brother. I grew up a tomboy, falling in love with sports and competition, and look forward to that first time that I could get out on a field and really compete. But that was also my first taste of discrimination. We were about 6 years old, and my brother could play baseball a whole year or two before I could. I was told I had to wait. Wasn't told why, just had to wait. Girls didn't play till they were a little bit older. Didn't matter. I still went to practice, had my glove. I thought, well, I could still go have fun, catch some fly balls, hit a few, only to be left in the dugout and told that you can't play. I even threatened my mom at one point to quit school because the boys wouldn't let me pitch at recess, citing girls don't do that. Fast forward, though, I earned a scholarship to play softball at Saginaw Valley State University. I had a wonderful experience. I was getting ready to become a police officer, actually. But then somebody saw something in me that I didn't see. Never before had I thought athletics would be a career path. But it took Dr. Dana Monk, who was a basketball coach at the time, and now a faculty administrator at Grand Valley, to talk me into applying for the head softball position at Ferris State University. And that's where I fell in love with being a college coach, a college administrator, because I figured out I could have impact, I could change the story of young girls. So they didn't have to have the same story that I had as a young girl. And it launched my life into sports, and now I stand before you as the athletic director at Grand Valley State University, where our women have soared. They've won 20 of the last 28 national championships that we've won. That doesn't happen by accident. I had no idea what discrimination was then, but I do today. And so I'm committed to the work to move the needle towards equity and participation in sport. I stand before you as a product of Title IX, but there are too few people like me, too few women and girls who have benefited from sport, and we need to change that. The Title IX legislation is a great one, right? It has teeth, but does it? No program has ever lost federal funding if they didn't follow it or if they were in violation of Title IX. Girls are still participating at a much lower rate than boys, and they're often shortchanged when they do get to play. At the college and university level, there still remains an underinvestment in funding, in visibility, and support for their sport participation. So our first recommendation is to bring the teeth back to Title IX. It's to modernize and expand the federal Title IX requirements. What this means is we need to create policy and awareness campaigns for parents and athletes so they understand their rights as it relates to Title IX. We need to increase training for Title IX coordinators, which we're all required to have, for administrators and coaches, so they understand how they can implement and enforce this law. While college and universities must report participation and investment data to the federal government through what we call the EADA report, that's the Equity and Athletics Disclosure Report, the same does not exist through K through 12. I submit to you that it should, because this is where we're losing girls. We should pass state-level laws that increase transparency, compliance, and accountability, and require Title IX spot checks at all levels. Even having a government entity that can coordinate Title IX efforts across the state departments, councils, and commissions would help advance this work. It isn't just about enforcement, though. It's about creating incentives. It's about acknowledging and recognizing those who do it well. There are models out there of people doing it well, and we need to recognize and award them. In the end, Title IX was created to give opportunity. It wasn't created to take opportunity away from one group and give it to another. This is not about reducing the opportunities for our boys and men. It's about creating opportunities on an equitable basis so that we all can benefit from sport. We know equity makes us all better, no question. How do I know this? Next week, I will attend the Athletic Directors Convention and receive what we call the NACDA Learfield Directors Cup on behalf of Grand Valley State University. This is an all-sports trophy given to the most successful athletic department in the country. It's given at all levels, Division I, II, III, NAIA, and junior college. Grand Valley has won 14 out of the last 16. And I mention this not to brag, but to let you know that this doesn't happen by accident, how I started. It happens because our women's teams had the chance to be successful. You don't win this award if your women's teams aren't great and aren't given the same chance for success. It represents a broad-based investment in all of our teams. So help us start to celebrate the same type of success at all levels by supporting the recommendations of this task force. To talk more about the next recommendation, I would like to introduce Dr. Ramona Cox. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning. This has been an amazing opportunity to serve on this task force, as this is my passion, girls and women in sports. So I'd like to thank you, Secretary, for allowing me to serve in this capacity. I am here to speak about investing in girls' athletics as a pathway to leadership in sports and other industries. I am currently a volleyball coach at Cass Tech, and I've had a number of opportunities to serve not only as a coach, but as a mentor. And this started because I was one of those girls. I played volleyball and soccer and softball as a young girl and decided that these were some of the things that taught me the life skills that I needed growing up. And my parents were there to support me. As I continued to play, I had an opportunity to play in high school as a multi-sport athlete and play at the college level. As a young girl, coming from the inner city, having opportunities to play at the next level as a Division I athlete, I knew that it was my purpose from God to come back to my community and offer opportunities for other girls to have those same opportunities, which has led me back here. There is a number of reasons why we need to increase these pathways. The number of women who have access to athletic opportunities has implications beyond sport, as it is often translates into more women leaders in every industry, including the women that are standing behind me. According to research from Ernst & Young, 94% of C-suite women have played sports. That includes CEOs, CFOs, COOs. And some of those women from our community include Trina Govan Scott, who works for Rock Ventures, Kalila Burt Gaston, who is the head of Song Foundation, Miss Ann Doyle, who is in the audience right now, who is the head of Doyle Leadership Strategies, and Miss Brenda Gatlin, who is a former principal for DPS and who has also been a basketball coach in our community as well. So there are many women who have been leaders because of their involvement in sport. Gender disparity in sport leadership positions is not due to a lack of talent, but rather systemic gender-based and social barriers to athletic opportunities at the amateur, professional, and elite levels of sport. So we talk about glass ceilings, we talk about the old boys club. Those are the things that we have to get over in order for women to have more opportunities. So this culture that exists where we don't have those opportunities must change. And the gendering of workplaces for women to fully thrive and contribute in meaningful ways. So our research from the task force revealed that girls living in suburban areas and cities and who attend schools with more students who qualify for a higher percentage of free and reduced lunch are less likely to participate in high school sports. Our research also revealed in part of Michigan where a girl lives is also related to her school sports participation. Girls in Detroit area are 11% less likely to play scholastic sports compared to girls in other areas. So this shows the importance of us providing these opportunities. So what can we do to address these concerns? Well, the first thing is going to be education. It's important for stakeholders to know gender bias and systemic barriers in sport exist and what those things are, as well as actionable solutions. This education must be required at the highest levels, and new employment policies are needed to overcome overt discrimination and unconscious biases within recruiting and hiring. There needs to be a system in place to recognize the many high-performing and best practice programs that do exist. Organizations that provide these opportunities do exist. There needs to be a system in place to recognize those. Earmark state funding or use pass-through grants for local government recreation centers to support initiatives and actions toward gender equity and girls-specific related programming. Pay equity audits, compensation practices, leadership buy-in, and education on cultural competence, diversity, equity, and inclusion are also going to be necessary steps to address the gender biases that many women experience. And then lastly, identify, connect, and consult with search firms that specialize in identifying women leaders and executives for sport organizations, because they are out there. I would like to point out that today, here at this historic location, there will be games here led by the Commissioner of Softball. So at 6 o'clock and 7:30, there will be games, softball games with our girls. So if you are interested, you can come and support, and that is one way that you can support this effort that we are proposing. Next up, I'd like to introduce Samantha Robinson, who is an athlete at Renaissance High School, to share remarks.
Hi, my name is Samantha Robinson. Y'all can just call me Sam. Nobody really calls me by my first name, by my full name. I've played sports my entire life. And for my entire life, my dad has always been there to support me, especially in like flag football, considering he was my coach. I played flag football to become closer to my dad, and it also helped that my brother Elijah was on the same team as me. We were most definitely an unstoppable duo. Sports runs in my family, which is why after I officially came to live with my dad, he put me in volleyball. I didn't want to play at first. I thought it was silly and I wouldn't make any friends because I didn't know anybody. But thanks to my dad, I came to realize that volleyball is the love of my life, and I've made a few friends from it. Thanks to my dad, I was able to make strong bonds with coaches, and because of them, I was able to have this amazing opportunity. Thank you, Coach Cox and Coach Lewis. Having female coaches has really helped me a lot. It gives me somebody I can relate to and admire, and I think that for a lot of girls who only have their dads, it gives like somebody who is kind of like a mentor, like a female mentor, and like kind of like a sister almost, like a big sister, and somebody to just look up to in general. Obviously, I look up to my fair play coaches, Coach Cox and Coach Lewis. I wouldn't have been able to play club without them. But I also look up to my Renaissance coaches, Coach Earl and Coach Chrissy. And I am proud to say that I play for both Renaissance High School and Fair Play Volleyball Club. Sports in general has very much helped me a lot. They give me sort of like an outlet, and I feel like in sports, in volleyball especially, like that's where I can really be myself, which is why I am very thankful that I can play sports in the first place. And yeah, I'm just very happy to play sports, especially volleyball. That's about it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mark Ewell. I am the Executive Director of the Michigan High School Athletic Association, and would first of all like to thank the entire task force, especially Secretary Benson, for your leadership with this. This has been something, the MHSAA role has been to listen. Obviously, I'm a little bit unique compared with those individuals standing behind me this morning, and it has been one of the most professionally satisfying experiences of my career. Our role in this process was to provide data, was to give information about the programs that are already in place, and most importantly, we would take back nuggets to the association after each meeting of things that we can implement right away. Even things that haven't ended up in the final report, are going to be used where we can begin to impact the experiences of the almost 100,000 female athletes that are currently in our program. This has been a tremendous experience involved with incredibly honorable people. And again, Secretary Benson and the entire task force, one of the most unique experiences of my career. Title IX and opportunities for women are, to me, both professional and personal. Professionally, we have, as I said, almost 100,000 girls, grades 6 through 12 in our state that participate in school sports every single year. They are supported by thousands of female coaches, administrators, and also officials. The experiences that we try to provide are always the strive and the goal is to be high quality, rewarding, and most importantly, equitable to all of our kids. With us, it's not just about participation. Now, certainly participation is part of that. Just across the way here at Ford Field back in March, we sponsored our first division this past March of our Girls Wrestling Championships. How ironic that that fell on the 50th anniversary of Title IX. But also our mission has to be about leadership. It has to be male leaders such as myself being intentional in pushing that ball forward to create and find leadership opportunities for the outstanding women that we have in our state. It's about leadership opportunities when it comes to our biannual conference of women in sports leadership. We can't just be about participation, it also has to be about leadership. And personally, I've been married now for 26 years, and my wife will be starting her 26th season as a high school basketball coach. And our daughter, Maddie, a high school sophomore to be, is a 3-sport athlete. And while we often think of Title IX in terms of policy and in the big picture, for so many of us, opportunities for women are local and personal. In this experience, coupling with the professional and what I see in my own home each and every day, has been truly a valuable experience. We've made a lot of progress in the first 50 years of Title IX. I think the challenge for all of us is we need to exceed what we've seen here in the first half and make these next 50 years even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Carolyn Casson. Oh, note to self, on a windy day, do not write it out. And bring paper. I'm Carolyn Casson, CEO and President of Michigan Women Forward. Michigan Women Forward has been extremely proud to serve as the fiduciary for the Women in Sports Task Force over the past 3 years. It is our hope that Michigan Women Forward will be the driving force behind the actual implementation of these 3 recommendations going forward. I'm going to talk for just a minute about recommendation number 3. And I hope you'll take a chance to really sit down and look at this, because this is 3 years of meetings, work in between the meetings, a lot of thoughtful discussion, interaction, research, and the third recommendation to encourage Michiganders to support and invest in future opportunities and access for girls and women at all levels of sport is kind of a summary of the 2 things that we think will actually make a difference. So that 50 years from now, I probably won't be gathering here with you, but those of you who are here will be gathering and saying, we did it. We made a difference. There's no such thing as inequity in sports when it comes to women and girls. The 2 things are engagement and investment. It's going to take all of us here to get engaged in this process. It's going to take, and I'm preaching to the choir here, I know that you're all engaged, but it's going to take the fact that everybody thinks of this as a critically important issue. If we really want to level the playing field for women and girls in sports, pun very much intended, we have to all commit. And we have a few ways that we're going to start right away to making sure that every single one of us feels engaged in this process. This is not a report that is going to sit on a shelf somewhere. This is a report that every single one of us are going to take out and look and see how we're doing and what we're implementing. It can be as simple as pointing out obstacles as we see them, asking questions. Why is it that our girls' soccer team practices on this field and not on the field that the boys practice on? Why aren't there any women being interviewed for this position? Those are the kind of things every single one of us can do to ask those questions and seek answers. Our goal is to embark upon a campaign to point out these inequities and to find solutions. We hope to launch a public relations campaign, a marketing campaign, to bring inequities to light and to create ways to solve those. We're going to be calling on every one of you, so answer my call when I call you, to participate in this. We're going to be looking to sports leaders here in Michigan, and there are thousands and thousands of them, men and women, to speak up, to offer up solutions, and to help us reach our goal. We'll look to the public and private sectors to send a signal to that this is important. We're going to go to our incredible sports teams that are here, and we're going to send a consistent and loud message that sports matter. You heard why. They matter because they change a young girl. They give her the confidence and the ability to work with a team and to climb higher in any field that they choose. But getting everyone engaged isn't enough. It has to be an investment that we are all willing to make these changes. Our task force came to the conclusion that we must advocate for investing state dollars, corporate dollars, philanthropic dollars to give these girls equal sports opportunities that they deserve. We have lots of ideas, so I'm going to give you just a few highlights of investment opportunities that we're going to start working on. Since our task force chair is our indomitable Secretary of State, we're going to start by allowing all Michigan drivers to participate in the Michigan Specialty Cause License Plate Program. Millions and millions of dollars have been raised over the last 20 years for universities and other worthy causes. The Support Women in Sports license plate, I promise you we're going to get somebody to get us a better title than that, but we haven't started down that path yet, is already in the works. We've looked at best practices throughout the United States. A lot of incredible research has given us the vision of what could be here in Michigan. We learned that many other states support girls and women in sports through the lottery, through selective excise and sales tax from sports betting. In New York, monies go to youth sports programs. In Ohio, 98% of sports gambling tax revenues must be spent on interscholastic sports and after-school activities. We're going to start looking at this, researching this, and begin talking to our state legislatures about what we could do here in Michigan that would be innovative and an important investment in women and girls. We're also going to mobilize private funding, corporate funding, foundation funding. So if you know anything about any one of those, we're going to be asking you to help with us, to work on these recommendations with us. One more glimpse of the future for women in sports in Michigan. Through our work, we learned that Detroit is one of the few thriving professional sports markets that does not have a professional women's team. For those of you who are a few years older than our two speakers ago, you may remember that our last and only professional women's sport team, the Detroit Shock, a WNBA basketball team, were three-time world champions. Stay tuned, because we are going to put together not only the work that goes around bringing women's professional sports back to Michigan, but an investment group and potentially a fund that will help get this off the ground. So if you are asked, what does that report say, and you'd like a quick summary, let me give it to you. It is about all of us and each of us doing our part to invest our time, our voices, our influence, and our money in making the changes we want to see in girls and women's sports. It's going to take every single one of us to obtain the funding to sustain these changes. This is a report that is a call to action. So, play ball. Let's go. Oh, these are going to fall off.
Thank you very much, Carolyn, and thank you for all of you for being here today. I'm happy to close with a few questions, and again, I want to thank everyone else here for the incredible work that went into this task force and into this report. Behind me, you see many of our members and our advisory members, referees in the NBA, athletic directors, academics, PhDs, leaders who want to see women have more opportunities to work in and play sports in Michigan. We know it's going to take a team effort to make that happen, and we're proud of the task force work in recommending not just to the governor but to the entire state of Michigan what we can do together to increase opportunities for all of us in our state. Thank you. So I'm happy to take a few questions if there are on, unless we effectively filibustered out the questions. Yes. Yeah.
What is your recommendation and advice to parents who have children in K-12 and moving into post-secondary? How can they be acclimated into this task force?
So many of us here today and who are part of this task force are also parents, and we've seen through our research firsthand how important it is that parents play an active role in advocating for their kids and for their kids to have opportunities in sports. Oftentimes it's been parents who have called out the inequities in opportunities to play sports. It's often for women, between women and girls and boys. Oftentimes it is parents who have encouraged young girls to ensure they stay the course and they don't give up and they follow their passion, whether it be volleyball, basketball, or football, and believe in themselves. So parents can encourage their kids, especially young girls, to play sports, even if the deck seems stacked against them, and fight for more opportunities for their kids to play those, to have that same access to sports that all kids have access to in our state.
Secretary, there have been a number of states that have started to create anti-trans laws, and so specifically with Title IX, what are some of the things that the state of Michigan is doing to protect the transgender community as far as access to be able to play sports?
Well, the task force did not specifically address the issue that has been emerging on transgender girls and women in sports. We do believe that everyone should have access to equal opportunity to play sports. The benefits of that access are clear, and we think we all benefit as a society when everyone has that equal access. And so our focus has been on building support and making recommendations to ensure effective athletic and leadership development for all women and girls. And in that, we support the ability for everyone to have that access, regardless of how they choose to identify themselves. We started this task force that questions why is the state interested in promoting access for women in sports. We started this task force in 2019 in recognition of the fact that Michigan was the only state in the country to have women leading every aspect of our government at the gubernatorial, attorney general, secretary of state, and Supreme Court level. We wanted to make sure this was more than a moment and that we were providing recommendations for what the state can do in the future to ensure women are able to lead in every sector of our society. Because when women have equal access to leading in tech, in business, in sports, in government, we all benefit. And recognizing the common thread, as was mentioned, between women in leadership positions was that they had the ability to play sports as young girls. And recognizing that, we determined the best way we could invest in the future of female leadership in our state was by investing in the future and the opportunities of girls and women to work and play in sports now. Thank you all again for being here and appreciate the enormous amount of work that went into this report today. We encourage you to read it, and we look forward to working with Michigan Women Forward, who is taking it from here to lead the implementation of many of these recommendations. Thank you.